Hi, Joshua. How are you?
Hey, I am great. Sitting here in the jungle in Costa Rica. It's a nice day and
Yes.
I can hear you, but it's not pouring rain outside. So,
And you were mentioning that you get treated with all sorts of amazing fruits around you, right? What kind of things have you been eating?
oh, well, over the many years here at my main farm, we planted fruit trees. But right now, this time of year, I'm getting rambutan, which are kind of like lychee family. They're amazing. Got several different flavors just kind of right outside my window. Also, a lot of coconut, a lot of jackfruit, a lot of oranges, a lot of citrus right now. Cacao pouring off the trees. It's really lovely.
So you can make your own smoothie. Just walk outside, let it all fall
Oh, yeah.
together.
I'm just finishing up a smoothie right now that
Uh,
has a bunch of frozen jackfruit in it, and it's my favorite way to have jackfruit is as frozen
uh.
chunks in a smoothie.
Now, what was the first
And
thing?
the
Rambutan?
rambutan though is like candy. That's like a
Ah,
lychee style, like a mamonchino is what we call it here, which is like it's a Asian fruit that grows really well in my little village.
huh.
Climate change and the deforestation that took place here really changed what fruit trees would and wouldn't work over the last 20 years a lot. And
Hmm.
this is one that's really thriving. So, and everywhere I go, I spit them out by the ton every year. So they're growing naturally all around me too, from
Oh, well, that's
from the seeds I
nice.
disperse out my windows.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I got to know you a while back, and because you were one of the few people that I knew that was really working and sourcing things like vanilla and cacao and, all sorts of, well, they're not, I guess they're exotic to us, but, cool kinds of things that are in demand for the healthy lifestyle of food, but hard to source a lot of times. So tell everybody, what kind of things are you growing right now?
So we've focused on growing forest a lot for the first many years, and then we planted probably 350 different species of edibles, medicinals, building materials, fruits, vegetables, in a mix here for the first like 15 years. In the last couple of years, we've commercialized turmeric, ginger, vanilla, black pepper. Pretty much, we're getting into pretty much making all the fixings for our own golden milk now.
Ah,
This one farm, and Amarado Cacao Collective is turning into basically a golden milk supply farm. So um, we grow our vanilla and our black pepper on like living vineyards that are nitrogen fixing and soil fixing trees. So it's a really beautiful blend on our main farm. We harvested about 70,000 pounds of turmeric this season, so we're busy making products out of that right now. And uh, yeah, we have cacao intermixed with all of this on 3 different farms. Um, yeah, those are the things that we're kind of commercialized already, and we're poised to bring more things. Like we have a lot of fruit trees we've experimented with over the years, things like jackfruit that produce, it's prolific. Bread nut and breadfruit are coming online over the next years. Uh, Stuff like that. We use a lot in our own agroforestry farm for consumption, just here on the farm. But we're here and listening to the market too, and listening to good people that produce up there or produce around the world that may come to us and ask us to grow more of this stuff, right, and lean in on some things that we grow well for ourselves, but we somebody would love in the market. So we mostly grow soil, I guess, is the real answer.
yes, of course. That's always the answer.
Well,
Uh,
at the base of it all, we grow soil. So out of that now is coming some beautiful vanilla and beautiful black pepper and really amazing turmeric, of which I'd love your listeners to try our golden milk if they could. they,
yes, the
they're going to
turmeric.
love it.
That's the original thing I think we talked about because that's such a healthy ingredient and it's hard to find a traceable regenerative source of it. And so and everybody increasingly, I mean, people are taking it as a supplement as well as trying to put it in their food and milks and things like that. Um, but before I forget to ask you, so has the name of your farm changed, or what is the name of your farm, and how would people know you and your products?
ReWildOrganics.org. ReWild Organics is our like customer facing brand.
Hmm.
Black Sheep Regenerative Resource Management is the name of our team that's been deploying this and working with the farms and regenerating the land here in the jungle for many years. And our expression to market though is the ReWild Organics brand.
Yeah, that's also,
So
I remember.
we have both some retail products, and also I'm producing some volumes that I'd love manufacturers to be able to track their some of their ingredients all the way back to the person who planted it and the day it was harvested. The kind of
Yes.
trackability we have on our small project
Yeah.
But I can totally understand why the world has a hard time sourcing things like this, because it's very hard to grow and process as a small producer. There's like a big disconnect between the markets and small farms that we're hoping to help continue tethering together in creative ways that help farms do value adding and become a part of the market in a way that makes it beneficial to them.
Yeah. Well, and things like turmeric, and I don't know really anything about the turmeric market, but is that seems to be like a big bulk product that's grown in like a commodity and hard to trace for the most part. Is that true or?
Yeah, and it's done in mostly over in India and Indonesia and places like that. So yeah, I don't know how hard it would be to track it down, but for what we're doing, it's really a direct from the farmer sourcing that we're working with.
Yeah.
We did like 35 tons last year on our farm. There's a co-op up the road that does a couple hundred tons
Mm-hmm.
that we can collaborate with. But yeah, as you get into the bigger and bigger volumes, it's difficult because it's difficult to do it on the ground. It's and to find it's not exactly hard to grow organic turmeric here where I live, but there's infrastructure missing, like the processing
Mm-hmm.
is, even if it is available in a country, it may be very far away. So doing this at a small scale, I can understand why it's hard to find. It's not just because it's hard to figure out their phone numbers. It's hard for small farmers to develop this supply at all at this scale.
One of the things that's unique about what you're doing is, of course, working with farmers directly and in a regenerative way. And you mentioned growing the forest first and kind of working on laying a strong base. But maybe share a little bit about what are the regenerative practices that you've been using to grow all of these cool products.
Well, we moved to an area that was denuded. They had cut this area down in the 50s, 60s, it was primary rainforest and cloud forest here in the 50s and 60s. You can go back on Google Earth and look at old satellite images of this area, and it's tragic what happened and how fast. And by the time I moved here in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, it had kind of been left. Agriculture had come through and done what it could for years. And once the topsoil drained away, which can happen quick here, we'll have storms where we get 6 inches of rain in 2 hours sometimes. It's consistently for every day for weeks. So when the trees disappeared, it really took away the soil. So in our area, it was pivotal to get back to forestry and agroforestry, and something that included forests to help rebuild the feedback loops, the positive feedback loops that needed to begin here at all to start doing anything close to what I would call farming. Even the chemical farmers had left because the challenges were so big. Water issues, like an area that gets so much water would still dry up in the dry season because there was no trees charging the aquifers. So in our area, us and our neighbors together and the government here and the co-ops have worked hard with the national parks to kind of tether together these national parks that are a couple miles each side of us. And it's really made a difference in our local weather patterns, even our local moisture and our local spring staying charged year round. So it was really the long game. I didn't come at this as a farmer one day and say I needed to be regenerative tomorrow. I came at this as a recycler that wanted to bring my lifetime work of upcycling and figuring out what to do with other people's whatever quote unquote garbage. This area was kind of left behind. It was more of what I've heard called like a sacrifice zone. So I moved in here to see what I could do. And I wasn't a coffee producer trying to switch to regenerative. I was a passionate forester that wanted to see how we could produce positive feedback loops that could eventually feed us. So I came at this with like the long approach, spent the last 17, 18 years doing research on this and developing our own farms. So the regenerative part here is just, it's what we do. We bring back the forest, and in the areas that it makes sense, where there's less inclines, where there's any type of soil that already exists that I can work with. Where a lot of the land around me is steep, so we give that to forests, and then in the little spots in between where there's some level land, we're making useful for food. I didn't move out here to eliminate calories from the diets of local folks, and what we're looking at here may look like a tragedy, but it's also cattle that's feeding people. Although cattle shouldn't be on this steep of land in the tropics. So So, the regenerative action here came first, and we're now kind of benefiting from the copious amounts of things like organic material, like the trees around me here.
Mhm.
This was all cattle land when I got here. I mean, it's
Mm.
hard to get perspective. Everything's green, but this is now 80-foot tall trees
Wow.
surrounding me. And it was just grass when I got here. So when I first got here to go and like start doing culture or burying branches and leaves, and there was no mulch to be had. It was all grass.
Mm.
So I had to walk hundreds of meters to find a strip of trees and weeds that weren't just grasses to move in and start creating soil. Well, now after many years of letting the wild spaces become wild again and tending to the spaces that we wanted to use, we've got can't say it enough, these positive feedback loops have really started. The moisture in the soil existing at all, the nitrogen fixing trees we planted that are now doing their jobs and becoming living vineyards for our crops. This was a long plan of regeneration that is now having a surplus come out of it. I don't envy what it means to be already be growing tomatoes and trying with chemicals and stuff, and then try and figure out how to keep production high as you switch to this. I've been working at the getting over the hump part of getting back to natural production for most of my adult life with this valley, and it's taken real time.
Mm-hmm.
Natural systems had to start working. Now we can accelerate that from what we've learned, but it's mostly planting trees and then using those trees wisely is the short answer and long answer. Here in the jungle, I will have storms where I get 6 inches of rain in 3 hours. Your best work as an organic farmer will get rained away in no time if you didn't create a canopy-friendly crop,
Mm-hmm.
Or enough mulch to stop rain from hitting the ground directly. So we do a lot to stop the rain from hitting the ground. We do a lot to eliminate the invasive grasses, these grasses that were dumped here by airplanes to make cattle fields. So we've been, in the beginning, I dug that out on my farm, but that's just a little hobby farm I was starting with my family and trying to figure out what to do. There's about 60,000 acres here in my county that need to be fixed. That's yay steep, and you can't put a shovel in every inch of it. You wouldn't want to. So figuring out these plants that will help eliminate the species that are a problem, and then slowly let it start turning over and create soil. This has been our regenerative method. Now, that said, the bigger part of what I find regenerative to mean in our space is community, staying put, people moving back. The youth or the kids that were here when I first moved here 17 years ago are now young adults that are running this project with and for us, and having real living wages in a village like this is near impossible with the old model. So, that's a bigger part of what I actually think about, because I think it's one thing to do the science of soil work and figure out how to do that. And that's actually simple enough. But having systems in these places, especially kind of out here on the front line of some of the worst examples of agricultural practice, it's a nice way of saying it, and socioeconomic justice and that stuff. It's for 400 years it's been a real problem down here, and keeping people poor so that they keep doing these jobs on the fringes, and
Right.
Allowing the forest to be cut and getting blamed for it at the end of the day too. It's all this stuff that my neighbors had so little control over, and the way that big fruit companies and big companies in the world treated this area wasn't friendly. We were all it was an absentee ownership model. So getting over the hump back to regenerative here is a big thing. But there's been a huge buy-in and positive things from the governments, the ministries of agriculture, the co-ops and the national parks, where there's been funding enough to keep this going forward. In our area on Google Earth now is tethered together a couple national parks, and there's big cats walking by, and there's species of birds. I still see new birds every few days that I've never seen before, being here 17 years. So the regenerative action is working, and it's a big collaboration. It's rebuilding the commons is not something I can throw on any one farmer or one co-op to pull off, but Costa Rica has stated that it wants to be the leader in this. So they've been putting their money where their mouths are, and we're in this space in between these national parks where they're focusing. So it's been a nice collaboration that builds to that regenerative model that I'd like to see, where it's not just a farm trying to quantify 10 little things, but it's
Thank you.
maybe a bioregion doing better, a watershed doing better, that kind of stuff. Community not leaving because their kids want to stay here still. There's upward mobility.
Yeah.
Stuff like
Well,
that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because just recently I've been in the, a back and forth, comment spree on LinkedIn, which, probably doesn't matter, but about, a lot, there's this wave of big food company announcements, and I don't even need to name them because, they're all out there, but about how they're driving regen ag and they're committed to regen and they're going to expand it on millions of acres, and oh, everybody get out the trumpets and hallelujah, we're all going to be saved because, big food has discovered regenerative agriculture and is going to expand it in most cases. Now I can say this because I've worked within these systems and talked to a lot of these different procurement teams and vision teams and well-meaning people most of the time, but it usually ends up being a checklist of things like, add a cover crop to this, group of, add a rotation, add 2 or 3 things that aren't bad. They're not bad things at all. They're certainly better than not doing anything. But to take this sort of triumphant stance that basically adding more to your existing squeaking by suppliers is somehow regenerative, just like throws me over the moon, because regenerative, look at the name, people. Regenerate. You can't strip dry the people working, this model and call it regenerative. And yet, because big food won't pay a penny more, and I mean a penny more, they'll pay more for marketing, they'll pay more for farmer training that they can take credit for, but they will not pay 1 penny more. I mean, most of them. There are individual exceptions, and then most of those are small companies, emerging companies or companies that are building a supply chain with partners like you all. So I really am excited to hear you talk about this kind of in-depth enmeshing. I mean, you live there with them. It's not even that you're sourcing from them. You live there with them. You are building community with them. And like, that is regenerative. It has to include the social part. It has to include the people doing the work, and they have to be able to take a break every now and then and go on vacation, for Pete's sakes. Farmers never get to go on vacation. And you can only do that with a decent wage, Yeah. I mean, I know
In most organic farming, even, is something like 85% of organic farms are actually funded by other jobs and other things.
Yes.
And it's like when we're eating organic, it's almost just a hobby level thing for the world that lets us do that. It's tragic, and the regenerative checklist. Yeah, I mean, I'd hoped that these certifications, which small farmers can never end up afford to do once the big guys get involved, but that they would include a lot of those things, but like local people buy-in and local people carrying it forward and managing it and like owning it. Like, it's not going to be regenerative ever in my mind unless employees are vesting and owning the companies they're working for too. But that's my vision of a better world. And I don't see that happening if you're working with the largest companies in the world, or if you do own a few percentage of it, or a few shares. It's nothing. It's very difficult. I don't even know how they're quantifying those checklists. I think it's just been the few things that science could do and really answer.
Exactly. Yeah.
The kids that have come and studied at my farm over the years, the thousands of young people that have come through, it's always they're studying very small things, and I like it. They want to understand what that cover crop does, but it's a part of a different way of thinking, not just a checklist.
Well, that's exactly it, because none of those practices are bad. They're all good. They're all good practices to incorporate in. It's mistaking but it's basically trying to recreate the same system that has caused us problems, but just changing, changing the chairs on the Titanic, we'll have these better practices, but we'll still have an extractive, commodity system that doesn't, and
we'll still pay the same price. You said that was clear. That I've learned.
Yes.
I've learned that. That's why we've developed our own brand, because even the companies that want to do better, that having the farmers' kids go to college or having a chance to be upwardly mobile even within the system of food isn't going to be included right now. It's not included right now.
Yeah.
So like our small brands can do that because we're not servicing so many investors. I don't know, but like we have to develop a direct to customer brand like ReWild Organics, or we don't get to exist in the same way that we are now. Because like
That's exactly what I have
uh,
learned with the grain farmers that I'm working with the beef ranchers it's the same story over and over and over again, because the only way that their products, if they are accepted, and in many cases, you know, big processors don't even want them because they don't want to have the comparison on the shelf with their mainstream product. And now this other thing that is so much better, but we got to sell a lot of, you know, this is bad. Now the main thing we make is bad, you know. So there's that whole dynamic. And then there's the whole structure, as I've learned, you know, of how they're built from the ground up. You know, they're the cheapest thing they pay for is the food. Then it's the packaging and the shipping and the advertising and the market space and the bookers but even if they really decided we have to pay more, paying a penny more, their whole model collapses because of all the other additional costs that they've already built in, and they can't anticipate doing business a different way. And that's why these direct to consumer, you know, brands I'm so passionate about. And I want consumers to understand, if they're a conscious consumer, if they really care about the climate impact, the nutrient density of the food, you know, doing it right, if they really want to spend some extra money to do it right, then you almost have to buy from somebody like you guys, or, you know, these other farmers that I'm working with that are becoming a brand because they can't get it out through the current processing system.
No, I was motivated mostly into food at all. And what put me on this path was joining a CSA in Oregon, a community supported agriculture farm, and like owning or buying a share every year of this farm, and getting a share every week of this for what, 6 months, almost 6 months a year. That really opened my eyes. I got the best food I'd ever had, and it cost considerably less than the store. I was, that's what and we need to do that same kind of community service, that same kind of agriculture, community supported agriculture, for the stuff we buy at a distance, the stuff we buy from the tropics, the coffee you're going to consume. And if you're just buying it through the same big brands, they're not paying any better. The farms aren't getting treated any better.
Yeah.
Like I was really motivated by that when I got around even the farmers market. I got direct with the farmers and helped them succeed. And that's where I think it's at. And then the CSA I was a part of, they also use their surplus to make salsas and ketchup, store and brands, stuff that went straight to the store. And if you're near a major city, or if you're in the right part of the right state in the US, that can be pretty good, I think. But there's so many people producing cacao out here, and black pepper and all the stuff we love, and the spices that we built ships and sailed around the world to get before. Spices are really important. They're not paying 1 penny more, hardly. It's tough. And hopefully maybe some of the pressure about climate change, and even though that's pretty compartmentalized thinking as well, that those checklists can maybe start including farmers doing some more of the regenerative work, and there can be some climate friendly ingredients list, you know, like places like us that can be getting you credits for buying ingredients from us, that kind of thing. But even then, they're just quantifying a few things like carbon, not my community so much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you call it climate friendly or carbon neutral, you could do that with a big scale, you know, because that's a very specific thing. That's a very measurable greenhouse gas, you know, sinks or whatever, you can quantify that. But regenerative is a mindset shift. It is about, you know, all of these things coming together. And I think how there's been an awakening, you know, in the last several years of people realizing processed foods and convenience, we trade health. We trade a lot of health. And we've always knew that, but we're now really becoming aware that, oh, it's the gut, it's the brain, it's the heart. It's like everything in us is negatively affected by a lot of this high heat and all the different oils and, you know, just all these things. And so people are moving more and more toward fresh food and realizing that they have to invest some time in making meals, you know, actually eating whole food. And that takes a little more time, but that convenience trade-off isn't exactly what we thought it was. It is a bigger trade-off than maybe we thought. And I think the same is true for people with wanting to buy from these brands that are really making an impact. They have to understand that, you know, just because it says it on the package or that it looks very beautiful. I mean, they have beautiful marketing. I mean, they have just beautiful sunset farms, you know, beautiful stuff, but that is not what they think they're probably supporting. So if they really want to support that, You have to know the farmer. You have to have a direct link to the
It's
farm.
more engaged. Yeah, it's going to be more engaging than just trusting the big brands that have well marketed well, and or even the brands that we tend to fall in love with, they'll get bought pretty fast by those bigger brands after they get successful. So I don't know if they lose track. I hope they keep some of that integrity of those initial brands, but who knows? We have to support the world we want to see, and I want forests and jaguars included in my bottom line of my business, and I'm going to pass that, and hopefully those stories can get through to the market. It's been a slow go, and after putting many years into this, I can understand why it's not very real. It's taken a team of super dedicated people that didn't care to make money for quite a while to get it to the point we're even at now. Or maybe didn't care to, but realized that it wasn't going to happen if there was.
Right. We're willing to prioritize other things. Yeah.
And we need that next level. We need consumers to care more and to buy more directly. That really solves a lot of these problems. But I mean, it also doesn't. There's infrastructure that has to happen. Like down here, you talked about things like logistics and processors getting everything. By the time a farm grows it and gets it out the door here where I live, something, let's say like turmeric or ginger, it's going to travel so far in the first step to get to a processor and then get dried, that just to that first step, the farm's only getting a third of the money. And it just goes down from there. By the time it reaches the market and packagers and importing and all that stuff, and then through the retailer, I think the farmer gets what, 3 to 4% of the shelf price or something. It's something we can remedy when we go directly though, and I think we can live the way we can build the farms we want to see if we support them directly. But it requires infrastructure rebuild. That's what we're in the middle of doing. It also requires, as I mentioned earlier, taking the commons seriously. So we start having proper feedback loops again. So our water table comes up, and it's not so expensive to. You don't have to keep buying chemicals to add to the soil, because maybe we can get over this hump to regenerative. I welcome people to come see what we've done here and what is possible. The tropics gives you a kind of accelerated view of this, both the destructive side when you clear cut an area, how fast it's gone, but also the regenerative side. And I was living in the Pacific Northwest where we get a couple inches of rain a summer or something. And I saw regenerative ag. It's a slow going process. Down here, I'm surrounded by the success of what can happen in no time. And a lot of our ingredients come from these areas. So we can lean in as consumers and help fix the rainforest. It doesn't just have to be like a donation-based model. It can be a shopping smart.
What made you pick up and go to Costa Rica? I mean, that seems like quite a big leap.
Well, I'd been in recycling my whole life. I grew up in a wrecking yard, like upcycling cars, and what people thought it was junk. And then I was in the paper and plastics recycling business for several years. And it led me into trying to figure out more to help affect the world at a bigger scale. The wars had begun, like 9/11 happened when I was up and coming in the business world, and we started going to war over resources. I saw that more clearly than I had as a younger person, and I wanted to do whatever I could to help change that. So my friends and I started a biodiesel collective and started upcycling oils into biofuels and getting them into the recycling trucks that were picking up that oil from the restaurants to begin with. It was a nice little closed loop thing. It worked out okay, and I felt like there was more to be done there. So I wanted to get into regenerating soils with, in some way, shape, or form, creating food, energy, and forests. And I chose Costa Rica because it's one of the few countries in the world that dedicates its tax dollars to education and healthcare. I chose this place, and I spent the last 17 years on that adventure with my friends and family. We started a little 20-acre spot in the beginning and really built like an agroforestry fruit farm, food forest. But as that was growing, and I was pretty content with what we were doing. A palm oil interest tried to buy the farm above us, and they were going to take my springs away. So I had to start engaging in a bigger boat theory again. I came down here and learned a lot in my little 20-acre boat with my friends and family, but I realized it wasn't all that fun to succeed in the middle of the farmlands of this area are kind of full of poverty. It's like being a successful little farm didn't feel like the goal. We had to start getting more comprehensive. I did with my approach and think a little bigger again. So I had kind of retreated into these farmlands and built my little jungle paradise, but I'm not the retreating type. I think my favorite Marine ever said, "Retreat hell, I'm advancing in the other direction." So I was advancing, coming down here to figure out what to do, and we started figuring out that we needed to help with our kind of collective cooperative model, and what Costa Rica has done very well, which is co-ops. I've learned a lot from them. Is to lean in on that community effort to rebuild the commons, in this space, and this watershed I'm in is in a unique position to do that. So I chose this area because I saw all those things kind of coming together, and enough people in my life wanted to participate. I think we have a couple hundred pretty dedicated friends, partners, vested owners in the 7 projects we have now, to keep giving this a shot, keep experimenting. It's given us the time and the space to learn this. I got to Costa Rica, and we've done everything as we could find the funds, and we didn't have to go into debt to build our space. So it gave us the time and luxury to learn and spend time with education. Now it's expanding because we're starting to create this market demand, and I can see it helping more and more and tapping into more of the co-ops that exist around us already, and getting to lean in with a demand that asks for more, like more quantifiable regenerative actions.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Black Sheep comes in. But I also like eternal spring. I like not being cold.
Yeah.
I bounce north a little bit, but I try not to do it when it's really cold, especially after acclimating here.
Mm.
It's always between 73 and 85 degrees at my farm, even at midnight or noon. So that's another reason I chose this area. I wanted to live with fruit trees year round.
Tell me about the difference in flavor from, like what people would maybe have at the store to, obviously fresh grown is going to be another level by itself, but have you been able to tell a difference after doing all this regenerative work and building up the soil in the flavor? Certainly probably the health of the fruit is better, but what about the flavor?
I didn't like pineapple growing up in Southern Oregon in the 70s and 80s. I think I'd only had pineapples that were picked a month before they should have been. That were sprayed with chemicals, probably. I don't think I remember organics at all being a thing in the 80s in Southern Oregon. So I probably didn't have an organic pineapple until I was in my late 20s in Portland. And that was probably good. But I got down here and had a pineapple that's like warm off the plant, straight out of the sun, like a white pineapple that we have here that changed my life, eating it. So realizing that the way that I had probably taken for granted the pears I ate in Southern Oregon from my mom's company when I was a kid, and then eating a pear like here and being like, oh man, they don't know what a pear tastes like. Well, we don't know what a pineapple tastes like for real up there unless it was flown up because it was picked ripe that morning.
Yeah.
It's so different. And even the products that we're taking care of and drying, we're like picking and selecting them and getting them dried within a matter of hours sometimes, and preserving those nutrients, not cooking them away. You said not just blasting them all away with heat. It's we've got to figure out a way to get people actual ripe fruit from this part of the world, because they'll really fall in love with it. Like bananas, I was up in the States during COVID a bunch, and I lived in Eugene for a while, and I didn't hardly eat a banana when I was up there, because down here it's almost like taking a bite of butter. It's so creamy. It's such a difference. It's like when you go to buy an apple here. It's not the same. And they can't understand here either, because they've never had one in the right time of year that just got picked off a tree. Although most Americans probably haven't either. I think an apple travels more than most people will travel on average in their like a year or something. So to get to the table. So there's nothing compares, and the nutrient density, whatever that means, you can just tell in the flavor. The explosion of flavor of all those sugars and phytonutrients when they ripen on the vine. I don't even know how they get some of these fruits to market. Like I picked custard apples this last week, and yesterday I was eating them. If you've ever had Bidiba, the amazingly like large, look like dragon eggs custard apples, they're so good, but I can't imagine how anybody would even have one of those in the US, how it would get there, because it literally, when you pick it off the tree, it like almost goops into your hand, and it tastes like ice cream when you get it cold. So yeah, nothing compares to that local thing. And you do the same thing when you eat a tomato up there from the CSA that did it right. It's hard to go back to what they call tomatoes on the shelf, the
Yeah.
store, off season. You know.
I think flavor is a really important link to the consumer, because that's one of the things obviously that they experience and that they are, right away getting a reward for, and reward for
Yeah.
their family. But we've talked to some people who've looked at some studies that have been done, not a whole lot, but there are some studies that have been, overlaying what is common sense, that, when you have something that's grown in healthier soil and it has more nutrients and more minerals, and particularly the mineralization really makes a difference in flavor, that you would get, a much more intense, flavor. And that's true of almost everything. And so maybe one of the takeaways too is like you said, wherever you are, you're local to something, so at least,
Yeah.
at least bring a part of your diet in from those farmers markets or those local markets that are growing the thing that grows well there, right to
Yep.
you, so you can experience some of
Yep.
that health and joy.
Oh yeah, it's so good. It doesn't all have to just be about this abstraction of carbon or climate change or all these hard to quantify big things. It can be that it tastes really nice.
Yeah.
Our turmeric has like a vanilla flavor to it. And like those kind of things can't be selected for in the big market because it's got to go into the big pile that goes into the supply chain, right? Typically. But I think I've read that in the last 120 years, we've lost like something like 97% of our varieties of the foods we eat have disappeared. So like there's dozens of different flavors that tomatoes can have that we're never gonna, or hundreds that we'll never experience that were around 110, 125 years ago. Same thing for the spices around the world. Same thing for lots of fruits. We standardize the flavor of things in our minds because of the big stores and stuff, but there's so many different flavors. Like the rambutan I'm eating tastes like a mixture of a rose and a lychee right now. It's amazing, and I've never had that on the shelf anywhere. So I mean, people need to travel a little bit and eat some stuff outside of their watershed sometimes and get a flavor. But like you said, everybody's got something local, hopefully, that grows. And the way you feel about that is the same way we feel about our coffee here when you get a well-grown one in the right soil. Same way we feel about our coconuts.
Well, and some of the things that you're making, especially when you dry them out and grind them and, things like that, they're going to travel better, obviously, than a fresh pineapple. So, some of those things that are in that more able to be transferred, form, then it does come to that next level of like the notes of vanilla that you mentioned, the really uniqueness of the flavor, but also the nutrient density and the fact that you can tell them how it was grown and what pesticides weren't put on it. And they could test for pesticide residue, which you just can't do when you're just collecting a whole bunch of sources all into one big blob. And that's the commodity supply chain,
We're robbing ourselves of that variety and that flavor and that stuff. It's not even just something you do for others or something you do for the labeling or whatever's sake. Like let's get back into the flavors of food. There was a moment in my childhood where like people talked about the future just being like supplements, like who needs food if you take supplements, like because the food was pretty flavorless and it was pretty canned. And like if I was around in the 50s again, I'd be wanting the Jetsons pill as well because the food, I didn't think I liked Brussels sprouts. Yeah, no, I didn't think I liked Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts when done right.
I thought spinach was a punishment food because all I ever had was a spoiled blob of green slime, plopped on the plate.
Yep. That's right. But, so you get that stuff that's done right, and it changes your perspective on food. Then what we do here, like at our farm, we have a lot of young people that come through each year, interns and students from universities. And one thing I think they need to learn more than anything is just back like the kitchen talents, how to prepare fresh food. It's not basically we've turned to snacks. Even our most of our prepared food is like snacks. Even our meals are snacks. And I think snacks kill more Americans than tobacco, probably, like for real. What they do, do the numbers.
That's a great, I don't want to say that's a great line, but since I do this a lot, that's a great line.
When you can earn so much more money with your time, you start thinking, oh, I just pay for processed food because I make too much to cook. Well, not in the long term. I mean, I think by the time you're 40, people are learning this, trying to cook and you get better food, and they're not like restaurant food. Even the better restaurant food is still coming from packages and Cisco and stuff. So, it's like when you take control of your own ingredients, all of a sudden food is a pleasure. And TV reflects that. I mean, there's like 100 different cooking shows now. I think people are taking that seriously. And during COVID, people
Right.
kind of had to do that. They had to
Yeah.
take more responsibility if they wanted variety, not just take out.
Hmm.
So I just want to keep seeing that movement happen. People like cooking, because that's what this is going to take. What do you do with the kohlrabi
Hmm.
when it's in season? Like my
Hmm.
my CSA had foods that I'd never seen at the store, and they gave me they gave me recipes. They even had, like, at the farmers market, they'd even prepare some of it, show you how to do it. So
Hmm.
I had to engage in cooking, and that's actually something people do as a hobby more and more now. But I
Yeah.
think it's necessary if you want to live a fulfilled life and support farms.
Totally agree. And, I was just talking about that with my husband today, that I have really gotten back into cooking. I love it. I love it. But, I now see it as just so vital. It's not just that I love it and that, I love the output of it, but, um, yeah, you cannot have control of the health of your family if you don't know, what it is that you're putting together and pulling it together out of whole food. And that does take time.
Yep.
And I think if society wants to start really valuing health, then, we as a society, we should really value the people that cook. Whether
Yeah,
it's,
that's
the
right.
stay-at-home dad or the stay-at-home mom, or the working mom that finds time, that makes it a priority because, they know it's important, really elevating that as an act of
And
love for your
engaging the
family.
kids too.
Engaging kids,
Engaging the
absolutely.
kids in cooking.
Yes.
I had cooking classes in the mid '80s in my junior high. Like and I had like big kitchens, and like that's kind of fallen off from what I hear. Like that's not something people lean in on as much. But
Yeah.
if you want it's my diet can help all these other goals in my life. The way I treat farms can help all these other goals. Like I don't want waste. I don't want plastic. I don't want
Mhm.
waste bins outside my house. In Eugene, they started doing the compost separate of the garbage. The city collects it, and we had several roommates during the pandemic. 7 people living in our house, and we made almost no garbage relative to, because we cooked everything fresh. We worked to do that here at our farm. Everything's fresh. It helped me meet all these other goals. I don't have to worry about plastic if I don't use it to begin with. If I'm getting fresh stuff at the store, preparing it myself, and you can really see it in the way that the refuse that leaves your home, or what you even call garbage. I mean, mostly we just made stuff that made soil
Yeah.
with our food waste,
Hmm.
and that helps. That's the world I'd like to see, where there's not a bunch of nonsensical plastic just being thrown away 2 minutes after you get home.
Yeah.
So working with your farmers market doesn't have to be that way at all.
Hmm. Yeah. So, well, where can people find the ReWild brand?
ReWildOrganics.org is our website, and
Hmm.
there's a couple products on Amazon as well. But I prefer you go to the website and grab them
Of course.
and
Yeah.
reach out to us. And then also, if there's any producers out there that want to have a farm like us to work with or collaborate with,
Hmm.
like I said, we're growing soil, and our neighbors are too, and we want to lean in on that. So they can reach out to me through ReWild Organics or through weareblacksheep.org um, to talk to me about ingredient supply. I'd
Hmm.
love to work with small manufacturers on their goals. Let them brag about their ingredients just like we do.
Absolutely. And they should. And remind people again the kind of ingredients that you have right now. Like if somebody was needing a supply of turmeric, they could, go and
Yep.
maybe vanilla, and what are some others?
Right now, we have turmeric that's available in the U.S.
Hmm.
In bulk,
Hmm.
and here coming through the factory. This season, we have ginger, vanilla, black pepper, and more turmeric coming off of our farm that can all be processed. And then we have connections through the small processor here we work with to get a list of other ingredients. But if anybody wants to work together in the medium and long term, they can come down and visit us and
Hmm.
pick the plot on our farm, and let's grow something together. We're going to start growing cardamom this year.
Oh, wow.
So we grow soil. So we're here to grow soil for what people need.
For what you've done, rewilding, reforesting,
Yeah.
really, because that's a big, huge carbon sink. And for those who don't know, I mean, you want to talk about an impact. Reforestation is like, that's where it's at.
That's that's what we're doing. And where we're at, it's mostly should be reforested, but there's these beautiful areas right along the roads where people have developed over the years that needs to stay in the food game, and there hasn't been enough value put on forests yet
Mhm.
to make it really worth switching away from like cattle farming to forestry, unless you do a hybrid model where you also produce some
Mhm.
what I'll call superfoods, or something like we're doing, value added food supply. So I'm staring out my window in an area that when you talk about reforestation, it's not just this tree though. I see several different layers of habitat in these 100-foot tall trees that have grown just in 17 years.
Yeah.
So it's so many things that we're going to start counting in the future, hopefully, that are more than just trees or carbon.
Yeah. It's
That come
re-ecosystem.
when you do like,
Yeah.
rewilding, bringing back the wild where it needs to be, letting
Mm-hmm.
wildlife have its place in the
Mm-hmm.
world, and not forgetting about humans, because a lot of those programs have been done at a scale or top-down approach that makes ancient and indigenous and localism illegal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not here. We're not here just to count forests and forget about people. What we've been working on in this forestry model is making sure that it remembers humans, and that the humans here will want to continue it beyond like the initial push, or past building a forest, that in 25 years it's not all cut down again because we didn't think about humans when we were talking about regenerating the forests and the food supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic, and I really encourage people to go to rewildorganics.org.
.org, yeah,
.org.
.org. We have a couple of lovely products there. We have a extract tincture that we're proud of on there, piperine, that absorbs really well as a supplement. We have our golden milk, and we have a couple other products
Now, what
getting out
does
there too.
golden milk taste like? What is that? I can't imagine.
We have 3 different kinds of golden milk mixes on our website right now. We have moon milk, golden milk, and sun milk. One of them is it's a mix of probably 7 or 8 different, maybe 9 different ingredients. It's got a really lovely earthy tone. The sun milk adds cacao to that, and the moon milk adds some other lovely things like rose flower, rose petal flower, which is amazing for relaxation going to sleep. So people love the moon milk. It seems to be our biggest hit. But we don't put any sweetener or any milk in it, or any milk-like product. We make the spice blends, and there's people have such a huge variety of milks they like
Yes,
or
and
don't
you can
like.
add it to your favorite
And they
milk.
have a huge variety of sweeteners.
Right.
So yeah, people will blend this and make like a latte, or people will have this as like the coconut milk, or I prefer it with oat milk and honey myself. Or you take our serving of our mix and put it in with the ice cream and have a golden milkshake, and I'm trying not to use much sugar anymore, but that was my favorite way until I cut out sugar.
Yeah. Oh,
But
wow.
yeah, we do that so I don't have to ship the liquid around, and it doesn't go bad as fast. So I like what we do on the farms to last.
Yeah.
And I do like to. Part of the reason we got into drying goods is because I really don't want to ship liquid around the world. So we make these dried mixes so it stays efficient and shelf.
That's really smart. That's great.
Amazing packaging. You're going to love the packaging. It's beautiful.
Yes.
And we consider everything down to the ink printed on the label. So it cost us a lot more to pull this off, but you'll never see our labels washing up on a beach in 20 years. And yeah, that's important to us.
Black sheep. If I think I remember a long time ago you talking about that, but is that to do with, because you're going so far off in the different direction, away from the way everything is done, that you kind of become a black sheep in the food business?
No, I think it's more like a bunch of black sheep came together to create something new, and not something new, but to tap into some of the maybe older ways of doing things and to integrate it with the newer ways of doing things. So a lot of my friends and family that have come together over the last 17 years of this project have been the black sheep of their industry. They want to help pioneer and the push towards a regenerative future, but it's not happening fast enough in the bigger world. So a lot of us have come together here and brain trusted together and gotten to build this. And I wouldn't say we're trying to do things that are too far out of what I would consider the norm for like human history, but for the last 60 or 70 years, definitely we're going against that grain. We do a lot of the design we're doing is trying to figure out how to get back to the jungle that produced for so many Americans pre-Columbia. Not idealizing it all, not romanticizing it all, but there's a lot of things to learn from the way it was done before we had petroleum, before we had even industrialism. So, in a way, if that makes us black sheep, although black sheep didn't have the most appealing sound for a supplements company or food company. So ReWild Organics kind of expresses that what we do on the ground in a way that sounds, I think, appetizing. And
Well, and it's so
yeah,
true. It's a great description of what you're doing.
the way the bigger companies are pulling this off, this green image, is by donating a tiny percentage of what they do to something green-ish or whatever. We're rewilding our area, and this
Mhm.
what you get out of that is a surplus of really lovely things if done properly. So I think it's a different way of thinking about it, and that kind of expresses that in a couple of words. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so important. You're creating a new value for forest, a new market for forest,
Mhm.
that forest can be producing food, but still be forest. It doesn't have to be cleared
Yep.
away to produce the food, but yet it doesn't just get locked away as forest that can't do anything for people either. It's this great
And well, in
balance.
this area I'm at, it's so cut down
Mm.
already that there's the pioneer forest
Mm.
plants that grow in this savanna that was made out of this rainforest.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of the trees that are going to survive in the direct sun and direct rain on these steep hills aren't going to be. It's not the natural jungle trees. They actually, the trees that belong here all grew inside of a canopy. They grew up in shade. They grew
Yeah.
up in very wet environments. So
Yeah.
we a lot of the pioneer species we plant are not going to be here when the jungle's back. What you're
Mm.
seeing all around me is still the pioneers. Now there's jungle trees growing underneath this.
Mm.
Now the huge biodiversity, the birds and the squirrels and the monkeys are helping me plant, because I planted the right fruit trees that would grow in a savanna. But those fruit trees are being overwhelmed right now by the forestry trees around them. And so we can get quite an economy out of the first 20 years of
Mhm.
regenerating farms.
Mhm.
And the steeper, more sensitive areas, the real sensitive water areas, you let them grow away from food forest and just forest. But there's so much land around me here that
Mhm.
you have an eon of regeneration. I mean, it would take me a few lifetimes myself, but um, where you can eat for the first 20, 30 years out of an area. So, and then leave it to the birds. So, and mostly I tended to, in the beginning, I mostly planted things for birds, and I'm so happy at that now.
Mm.
I didn't know I was a bird watcher until I'd sat here for a couple of years. And now I'm really enjoying watching them come in and replant the forest for us. And there's a lot of studies down here that show if you can tend to the birds, they'll do a more biodiverse forestry effort than you could, even with all the thinking you want to do about it. They'll plant a more biodiverse forest in 20, 30
Mhm.
years than you could. So we're figuring out the really low input, high output model, and being cool with the staging of bringing back things. And it doesn't mean I only plant things that grew here forever. I'm planting trees from Asia, trees from India, trees from Africa that will grow in the savanna.
Mhm.
Um, although, like I said, in 20 years they're going to be overwhelmed by natural jungle trees here, and they go away. So it's a nice way to eat while you bring back forests.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this great information, Joshua, and we wish you super good luck. And we're going to add a link to you and to what you're doing. And we have a web page on our website called Better Food. So it's globalfoodfarm.com/better food. And we put the folks that we interview and that we know well up there, and it's just a direct link to your website and a little description about what you're doing and a link to the podcast episode. So and of course, we'll remind people in the show notes about the address, the website, and all of that good stuff. So hopefully, manufacturers out there that are, I know there are a number of food companies that do use different spices, and that's always a hard one to find. So I'm really hopeful that they find you and that they help be
Sounds good.
part of rewilding, the planet.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to come to the farm and participate with us too, I'll share that with you. verdanarquia.org, our main farm community here.
Mm.
And I'm happy to have anybody that wants to come down and plant some trees or pick some vanilla with us. Any of your listeners that
Oh,
want to get a hold of
wow.
me,
That's
welcome to come. We have plenty of space here for people that want to eat the fruit and plant the fruit with us. So